Hear you, hear you, hear you. Howard County Board of Commissioners announce it.
Hey, if everybody would stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer, please remove any hats. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Stay standing for the prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, we just thank you for the opportunity that we have to come together and live in the country that we live in and be able to work and do the work of the people. And this is our opportunity to do what's right for the taxpayers and try and with your guidance and help. We thank you for this time of year with the holidays and just ask for us to be thankful that we live where we live and we have the things that we have. We know that sometimes we don't do that, but we know that you're there to help us and guide us. And we say all this in your Son's precious name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, everybody, for showing up to the commissioners' meeting. So we'll get right into it. Special announcements and recognition. Hearing none. Approval of previous meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those are passed. Okay, we'll jump right into departmental business and reports. First up is the Indiana Department of Energy grant. Pam Isaac. Okay, not here yet.
I have an ordinance for creating a new fund for that grant.
Okay. We have an ordinance of the Howard County Board of Commissioners to create a new fund for the Office of Energy Development Grant. We would need an ordinance number.
Okay, 2024-BCCO-47.
47.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do I hear a motion to create this ordinance?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
This has passed.
What that is?
I'm sorry?
Can you explain what that grant pertains to, or maybe perhaps?
Sure, I'm gonna have one of you guys read it.
Ordinance number 2024 BCCO 47, an ordinance of the Howard County Board of Commissioners to create a new fund for the Office of Energy Development Grant. Whereas the Howard County Board of Commissioners is empowered by IC 36-1-3 to take such action necessary for the effective operation of government and local affairs. And whereas the Howard County Board of Commissioners is authorized by Indiana statutes to adopt an ordinance to create as many funds for stated particular purposes as necessary to operate Howard County. Whereas Howard County has received funds from a grant from the Indiana Office of Energy Development and a new fund for this money is necessary. Now therefore, based on the above described powers, it is hereby ordained that the Howard County Board of Commissioners follow as follows. Number one, a new fund, Department of Energy Grant Fund is hereby created. The fund number 8935 for the receipt and deposit of grant funds awarded to Howard County. The purpose of the grant is to enable the state of Indiana to award $200,000 for purposes stated in the grant agreement. The grant agreement remains in effect for 2 years from 5/1 of '24. The fund's balance is reverting and will need to be budgeted each year or as disbursements from the state are received. The funds and cash available are zero upon termination of the fund. This was adopted this day, 2024.
We had applied for this energy grant and was awarded this grant. So now we have to have this fund to put the money into and then be able to spend it. Sure.
Brad Seaman, Eastern Howard County. Does that grant, is it tied to renewable energy?
No,
In order to get that grant, you don't have to be
no.
renewable
no.
in your ground or, okay,
No,
that's what I was curious about.
no, it's not tied to that.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Come up to the podium, please.
Jane Gar.
State your name.
Jane Gar.
Oh.
Is it going to be used for renewables?
No, it's actually going to be used for some projects here around this building that we needed to get done. Leaking windows is one of those.
Good.
So,
Mr. Stone Street, are you versed to speak on this? Because I know that you've been involved. I would ask you to do that, or our maintenance man.
Pam's more familiar with it than I am.
Or Pam, I didn't see you, Pam. Go ahead, sorry. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Pam Isaac, Howard County Projects Manager. So this grant was a grant that we applied for, and it is some of it is for LED lighting, if we need to upgrade LED lighting. It is for energy savings. The whole purpose of it is to see how much energy we can save with a project. The decision has been made for this particular grant to be used for our HVAC system in this building so that our heat and our air conditioning remains at a stable temperature. Because as you know, sometimes you're in this building and it's 55 degrees and sometimes you're in here and it's 105 degrees. That's an exaggeration. But it's to help with energy. We only got $200,000, which is a good deal. It is reimbursable. And the decision was made to focus on this building because we had so much going on at the other buildings. And so that's the purpose of this grant.
Thank you, Pam.
as people can tell you, in a very old building, big building, it's very hard to regulate temperature. As Pam said, some days you come in, it's very hot, some days not so much. And so part of this will be used to help with that.
Any other questions I can answer? All right.
Thanks, Pam.
Good question. Okay, moving on. Maintenance Department, Mr. Stone Street.
Good afternoon, and speaking of energy, I asked earlier in the year for some money for LED lightings, and it was roughly $10,000, and so far we've received rebates of $5,562 due to the installation of the lighting fixtures that we've installed. So that plus the fact that we're reduced our load, and it's also going to reduce our electrical energy costs, so it's a very good move. What I have going this evening is we've got a plan going for Kinsey to make some exterior repairs. We've looked at a couple options this year, and I feel confident that the folks at Tremco found a good solution to the water intrusion out there. What we do have going on is Cassie has some money that we can spend on this, that we can get spent this year, and that we're not going to be able to do obviously a whole project in 2 months. But we have some things we can knock out quickly, possibly, if the weather holds out. One of them would be to secure an engineer so we can write off on the repairs that we need to make out there and look over the repairs, give them his blessing if they are good repairs, because it's kind of a complicated situation as far as the guttering's concerned out there. That we estimate that cost to be $10,000. Secondly, the fire door is where there's a lot of water intrusion that's going on. It can be fixed this year. The fire door, what it does is it automatically closes if it senses excessive heat to protect the occupants. So we can make some repairs there. And also the gymnasium needs some temporary repairs. They'll have to be redone, but the water intrusion there is severe enough it's causing damage to the interior of the facility. So I think it's money well spent to get on that as soon as we can. We may or may not be able to get that done this year. Like I say, it depends on the weather. But I'd like to have a budget of not to exceed $34,000 to make these repairs. And Kathy has said she has operating expenses she can take that are unused or operating money that she can use to put forward towards these repairs. So that's how we would fund the project. And at the very end, I would like to move forward with at least some or not all of this next year as far as the exterior repairs at Kinsey, but that's later on down the line.
So if I understand correctly, Bill, this will give you a good jump on getting some of this stuff done.
Yes, sir. It will get some money spent this year that we have on hand and won't have to spend next year. And it'll get us a nice big jump.
I could tell you guys from 32 years of experience at Kinsey that the design of the roof to the guttering was not necessarily the best design. And when the ice thaws and freezes, it pushes against the fascia and pushes down. And over the years, it's caused that fascia to deteriorate to where they got these issues.
So when this is fixed, it will fix it?
It will fix it. We're expecting the roof to last another 20 years once this is fixed. The roof would then need some kind of attention at that point. Probably get another 10, 15 years out of it if, you know, if those people at that time decide they don't want to put a new roof on. But what's happening is it's not necessarily the roof that's leaking, it's the gutters that are leaking that are causing the water intrusion. It's got into the blocks and freeze-all, and you can't paint. You can't go over there and throw some caulk up and throw some paint on that. You have to fix the problem first.
Right.
And it's a complicated issue, and it's not a cheap issue, not a cheap fix. But we really need, there's nobody out there that's come up with a good solution that I've heard until now. And I've been looking at this for 5 years, so I trust these guys' opinions. They did all of the work. They signed off on all of the roofing that we've done over the last 10, 15 years. And they're a good group.
I'll make the motion.
I have a motion and a second for a budget not to exceed 34,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, Bill, that question.
Thank you very much.
County Highway, Amber Toll. Thank you.
I just need to read into record our winners for our annual bid items. We have 7 items, so I'll just go through them really quickly, who the winners were. So item 1 is precast and pre-stressed beams. Milestone Contractors won that. Item 2, various grades of asphalt emulsion, E&B Paving. Fog seal, item 3, E&B Paving. Item 4, HMA Pavement and CMA Pavement, E&B Paving as well. Item number 5, stone, is Heidelberg Aggregates, previously known as Hanson. Item number 6 is equipment rental. We did not have any bidders on that item. However, we haven't used those items in a couple of years. So if we do need those items, we'll just have to go out and bid those as we need them. Item number 7, diesel fuel, is Keystone Cooperative, won that bid. So I would just ask for approval of all of these contractors to move forward with our bid items for 2025.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved.
All right, thank you. That's all I got.
Thank you, Amber.
Thanks.
Okay, new business. Is there any new business to come before the commissioners? Hearing none. Claims and reports, salary claims.
$1,105,001.99.
Move that as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those are approved. Payroll expense.
$1,105,001.99.
Approved as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those are approved. Operating claims.
$2,714,829.91.
Move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Those are approved. We have claims to ratify.
I have a few. City of Kokomo wastewater utility, $48.29. Midwest Pre-Sort Service, $1,613.19. Verizon Wireless, $1,604.40. Waste Management, $2,763.23. Zayo Group, $2,167.48. Bankers Bank, $5,266.70. Comcast Business, $1,000. Dex YP, $82. Duke Energy, $1,082.05. Indiana American Water, $1,398.67. Monroe Construction, $526,978.16, and NIPSCO, $67.
I move to approve those.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those claims are approved. Any monthly reports?
I have weights and measures, date start October 16th through November 15th, 2024. And I have the treasurer's monthly report, month ending 9/30 of 2024.
We'll mark those as received. Are there any grants?
None.
Okay. Mr. Wilson?
I have nothing further today.
Mr. Lipinski? Mr. Bray?
Yes, sir.
Are there public comments to come before the commissioners?
Ladies first.
Okay, public comments. If you have a public comment, make sure you come up to the podium, state your name and address, please.
Grace April, 12765 East, 100 North, Greentown. Hi, Brad.
Make sure you speak up so that the mic will pick you up.
Is it on, Jeremy?
So this is public comment. I can talk about the solar farms? Yes?
Public comment.
Okay.
Okay.
I just had a couple questions. First, this might be, Mr. Sheeline may have to answer this for me, but I'm not sure. I wanted to talk about when the BZA denied solar and then denied solar for NG, I believe, and then it approved it. I was curious on the some of the items that they had to consider, and the one is proposed use being consistent with the comprehensive plan. And so that's what I wanted to talk about first. I said, I'm sorry, I thought it was going to take longer. I have a handout for you. Oh, I really apologize. Okay, here it is. I spent about an hour and a half last week with Howard County Soil and Water, talking about the soils in eastern Howard County, and he gave me this map, which I had heard about. This is eastern Howard County. You see how it's orange. And over here, this is western Howard County. And these soils are phenomenal. Glaciers helped make this soils here, and they've deposited things. I'll be brief. The nutrient holding capacity of these soils is fantastic, and that's why the crops do so good here. You had a man here, I don't remember what the meeting was. I think they were talking about well water, and he was from California, and he was hired from one of the solar companies, I believe it was NG. And in his comments, he said, and that he was talking about the soils, and he said, and that's why the soils here produce such good crops. That's why this is such good farm ground. So I don't know if you're aware, but a custom soil report was recently done February 15th, 2023. And these, I think you're familiar with, Mr. Sheeline. They use these things for the comprehensive plan and talks about the soils here. And I wanted to just hand this in. I've highlighted the thing because it's 11 pages. It's really hard. Same thing is here. They have all these soils in Howard is prime. There's different designations, and prime farm ground is the best you can get. I learned from Kerry Smith at Howard County Soil and Water that eastern Howard County soils rank in the top 10 of all 92 counties in the state. I learned that as far as crop production, and I have another handout for you, and I took 2020 because it was the easiest one to find. I've got 7 counties listed here. Crop production, the best was Boone, next was Tipton, third in the entire state of Indiana, third in crop production. The corn yield that year was 213.1 bushels per acre. 92 counties in the state of Indiana. This is good soil in eastern Howard County. It's great soil. Let's see. The average price of corn in Indiana in that same year, 2020, was $4.70 a bushel. So using that information, use my calculator, the value of the crops that year, and I'm using corn because in all of the solar information, they always use corn as a comparison, so I did the same. The value of the farm ground, the products produced on that farm ground, I'm using 4,000 acres because it's 2 solar projects together, all in eastern Howard County. The value is $1 million.
It's just,
No, it's just money.
Yeah, but you're fine.
You're not
1 million.
counting.
a million.
It's over $1 million.
Right.
I'm sure you're aware of all the businesses that have sprung up in eastern Howard County, all dealing with farming. We have 4 tractor dealerships, and then there's one in, we have John Deere, we have New Holland, we have White and Ferguson over in Plevna. You've seen the huge Plevna implement tractor place. We have so many businesses. You've got Kokomo Grain with its thing in Kokomo and Amboy. Then you've got one in Sims right near me. Elevators, they employ a lot of people. So does Plevna and New Holland Greentown. You've got lime services, fertilizer services. Most of them now are owned by Keystone. They bought the diesel fuel and the propane. Used to be Schrock's in Plevna. Now it's Keystone. It's Keystone fuel oils, it's Keystone, used to be Herbst, it's fertilizer and lime, pesticides, things like that. So it's a lot of people that are employed. Now I wonder, you take 4,000 acres out of production, somebody's going to lose a job. So it's not a benefit to anybody in eastern Howard County. That's just my opinion. Being green. I don't know if you're aware of this, but an acre of corn grown during the summer sucks up, the real word is sequesters, removes is a better word, 8 tons of CO2 while it's growing. Cover crop, that would be, we have a lot of Amish over there, we have dairy, so we have things like spring barley, triticale, alfalfa is all year long. The other ones are like all winter long. You plant wheat, you can plant rye. A lot of people are doing that. Howard County Soil and Water has been an advocate for that, and there's state funding for that. There's programs for that to help farmers take care of the soil. So the cover crops alone will remove 3.3 tons. Usually that's during the fall into the spring. So you have year-round crops working on this global warming, this green stuff. And I wanted to ask you something. I don't know this, but I went back online to look up information from Ranger, because Ranger has been talking to us. And I saw this cute little, I don't know if you can see it. Can I bring it up? This little drawing down. I don't know how tall that, they said one told me 20 foot, 50. But if you look here, it says panels will be about as tall as 4 and 15 feet never see 15. I don't know if they're panel. This to me is misrepresentation. You see how the corn is put in the pan? That's fraud. That's not true. No black or white. There is black or white, no black. I don't know what this is. I don't like stuff. This is on their website. There's all kinds of other things. I didn't finish bringing everything because I don't want to hold you all up here and lose your dinner. I have another problem with these contracts. I know you've heard about them. We've gotten several. And in the last one I got, Locomotive Solar, said that they were going to apply for their BZA exemptions early 2023. So have they applied for anything, Ranger? The project is called Locomotive Solar. It's Ranger Solar Company. Have they applied for anything in BZA, or have they talked to you? Have they applied for anything here? Okay,
Not
but
that
they're
I'm aware of.
also the ones, you may not see a lot of people here because economics are bad. And they give us this letter that says, if you don't go to the meetings and you don't, make a fuss and this and that, and don't complain about anything, we'll give you $1,000. Then once we start construction, in a certain phase of it, we'll give you $10,000 more. $11,000. Well, if I was growing up, my parents would teach me that that's a bribe. That's not right. Don't do business with companies like that. It's not wrong. They want your land. They want Eastern Howard County. They don't care about the quality of soil. They care about money. It's close to the Greentown substation. So, yeah, but you know where it should be is in the old Delco plant on poor soil. Not, there's so many deer out there. If they put this fencing up and it's close to the roads, the deer, it's going to take them a while to figure out that they can maybe go around there, but someone's going to get killed because the deer is going to find the fence and then go back out on the road. There's dead deer out there now. There's a lot of deer in Jerome. You know that. There's a lot of woods down there. Don't do this to these people. You have the option. So I'm going to ask you a question. My grandfather, I'm going to brag on him. His name was George W. Krogman. He was the mayor of the town I was in. And one time, a fire company, they needed a new fire truck, and the people came in and they offered him $10,000. Back then, that's like $1 million. I was only this big, so that's a long time ago. He said, well, let me think about it. And the next day he had the newspaper there and they were in the closet waiting, and they came and they offered him again. So they got in trouble. Of course, they didn't get the fire engine from him, but that's a bribe. But he told me the good thing I wanted to say to you is when you have a decision to make and it concerns a whole lot of people, take the money out of the equation. Is it the right thing to do? You take the money out of this equation, you got the best soils. I mean, don't be like North Jersey. Don't do what they did and everything's concrete and stuff. You were given an asset by the Lord. It's fantastic. I mean, goodness sakes. This was one of the last counties developed because it was called swampy. If you treat this soil right, it gives you yields like I've showed you here. So one more thing, and I don't know if I want to say this in public or if I should say it in private, but this BZA situation, how is it right that a sitting commissioner act as a lobbyist and go before the BZA, blah, 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 and then go over to Muncie now that he's not a commissioner, now that he's paid by somebody, and talk about the benefits of this and how could, I saw a report, and I don't know if it was the BZA application or where, but I think it was a comment on property values if this comes in. Well, his little paragraph had maybe 3 or 4 sentences, and it talked about homes being sold over where the wind turbines are in Tipton, that half of them don't work. And he had said he'd looked through 22 of them or something. And then he said it was reasonable to, what the big word was, started with an E, to assume that the same would be for solar. Well, that's not a report on property values with solar farms near you. That's a speculation from a man about real estate or comments about real estate that he sold in a wind turbine zone, not solar. Solar's completely different. And this, when I showed you the little thing with the corn, nowhere online does it talk about the inverters, about anything, you know, what they are. It'll point them out. But when I went to the open house in, where was that? Fairgrounds, right? I think that was Ranger. Was that Ranger? Okay. They didn't talk about the inverters. They didn't talk about the noise. I've since then learned and heard about the noise. Brad Seaman back here gave you a packet a while ago from Madison County. I recently saw it, and I listened to the audio of the inverters. There's no way at night I'm going to be able to sleep. We don't use air conditioning. We have screens in the window. You can't hear you can hear a pin drop. I mean, it's so silent. But you put those inverters in, I can't sleep. I work 7 days a week. Is it going to affect my cows? I don't know. There's no study for that. I don't know what that, it's going to affect me. Please don't do this, okay? Just don't do it. And the landscape materials, oh, here's another thing. I'm sorry if I'm going too long, but when I talked to Kerry Smith, he told me the best thing to put there for the ground that we have to help with drainage and to help with flooding is not perennials, not pollinator plants. He said you've got to put cool season grasses there, and it's got to be maintained. That means mowed. They don't want to do that because they don't want to have someone come in there and mow. And the bushes and stuff, if you go look at the cell tower on 600 East, just on like 100 North and 600 East, you'll see maybe 8 evergreen trees that are alive. So I went to look why all the other ones were dead. They never undid the neck thing, the wrapping of the burlap. They never undid it, and they never put slits in. They just threw them in. And the ones that are alive are lucky. But
Miss
I'm done.
April, can I make a comment?
Yes, and I'm
I
done.
typically-
I'm sorry I took so much
I
time.
typically don't comment because it says public comment and it doesn't say Jeff respond. But it is public comment, so I typically do not respond to public comment. What a former commissioner does, I have zero control over. I speak for myself.
Yes.
He doesn't speak for me. And whether it's coming to Richeville and speaking to the residents about the water,
I
or whether
understand.
it's going to Muncie and speaking about solar, he is not speaking for myself.
Yes.
He may be speaking on his knowledge and his whatever, but he's not speaking to me. So I take offense to a lot of people saying, well, he's speaking for you guys. He's not speaking for me.
Oh, no, if I
And people have already, I've had other people tell me
did
that.
not
He
imply
does
that, sir.
not
I'm
speak
sorry.
for Jeff.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome, and I appreciate you, and I'm so sorry. Basically, what I meant to say was the first 2 times, was he not a sitting commissioner when he stood up and advocated during the BZA?
I was not a commissioner at that time.
Can someone tell me if he was a sitting commissioner? I was told he was a sitting commissioner the first 2 times.
But again, each commissioner speaks for themselves.
Right.
He spoke for himself.
In
He
no
didn't speak
way
for us.
do I mean commissioners as a general thing. I'm not saying Democrats and Republicans and
And-
commissioners and non-commissioner
Brad
people. I
speaks
am
for
not doing
himself, I
that.
speak for myself, Jeff speaks for himself.
Yes.
and He spoke for himself. Please don't take that he spoke for us.
I did not, and if I convey that, it's because I'm so nervous. I'm not even looking
you're
at my
doing
notes.
fine.
I just wanted to tell you that
You're
it
doing
didn't sit
great.
right with me for that person to be talking to the BZA when they had such a huge decision to make. And if I offended you, Mr. Lipinski, I am so sorry. I did not mean that, but
We're not.
I think you understand what I meant.
Yes, you're doing great.
Excuse me?
But I do have one thing.
Thank you for the information and thank you for your passion about it.
Yes, and I'll go sit down. Thank you.
It is 4:30. We do have another meeting, and I do have to stay on time frame. I just want people to know that. I want people to have their say. But I do have another meeting at 5 o'clock in here, so we do have to stay on target. So please, the podium is yours.
My name's Tim Russell. I live at 8868 East 100 North in Greentown, Indiana. Just from the look of the board, a few of you remember this. The last meeting that we had, I stood and I talked about this. It's a great concern of mine because I lived through this. 1965. In Howard County's history, can you name me one incident that was any more devastating than 1965 tornadoes? None of you can. Does anybody?
I was born in 65.
That was devastating.
That was devastating. I get it. No. My issue is, and this was my issue at the last board meeting when we talked about the solar panels, was I'm not God, and it's not an act of God when you set something in God's way. You understand what I'm saying? It's not an act of God when you set something in His way. And I warned the last commission about this. I'm a pastor, ex-pastor, I guess you would call me. I love people. Number one concerns people. 3 days after I had spoke about the tornado, 3 days, we had another tornado go through this area that they want to put these. Now let's understand something about these solar panels. I've been a body technician for 58 years. They are made of glass and aluminum. According to the meeting that we went to, they're driving steel poles, 3.5, 4-inch steel poles in the ground, 2 foot. They're driving them in. They're not putting them in concrete. They're drove in. The panels are 8 by 4 panels. I don't know how many posts per panel that they're putting in. The glass on top of it is safety glass, just tempered, which when it breaks into 1/4-inch pieces. And aluminum. All the Ford trucks are made out of aluminum. Have you ever seen a Ford truck that's been hit by a car? It's nothing but shards of sharp steel. Now, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Because it's going to happen again. It happened 3 days after the last meeting. And had we had 400 acres of these, or 4,000, 4,000 acres of these things in the path of this tornado, they would be talking about the tornado in Ohio from the shards. I remember in 1965, and please, I don't mean to be ugly when I say this or rude when I say this. We lived in Swayze at the time. We had a church, my dad had a church here in Kokomo called Gospel Light Mission. We like to never made it back home. When we got back home, my dad and my brother went out looking for people. There was a man that lived south of Swayze. When they found him, he was drilled in the ground. Only thing sticking out was his feet. If you read through this paper, and I suggest anybody go to the library and pull it up, it will blow your mind of what happened in 1965. The most damage was done, according to the 1965 paper, by glass. More people were hurt and killed by glass shards. And we're going to put 4,000 acres of glass and aluminum, kites, if I would say, with posts stuck 2 foot in the ground, and after the first freeze and thaw we have, they will shove them up at least 6 inches. So do the math on that, guys. I mean, whose blood's going to be on whose hands? We have a choice, and we have a chance to stop this. We've already heard it's the best soil in the world, and I believe it's the best place in the world to live. I live in Howard County. I'm proud of it. But it worries me for my friends and loved ones that live around me. It worries me for all the cities that live east of us. Because we know that history tells us those tornadoes, they come down the same path. Every one of you shaking your heads, yeah, they sure do. I mean, we have to agree on that. They come down the same path. The Miami, I believe it was the Miami Indians said, don't pitch your tent, was it north of or south of the Wildcat? They knew something. We have history of this. We have history of tornadoes. And we want to put 4,000 acres of lethal glass and aluminum shards in the path of our neighbors, our friends, our animals. Makes you stop and think about something else. It's not about the energy. They've already proven fact. I mean, who would want to invest in anything that's only works half a day? These panels only work half a day. I would invest in something that worked half a day. If I'm going to work in something, I want something going to work all the time. If the sun don't shine, we got no power. Doesn't make sense. That's all I have to say. Just think about it. Whose blood's going to be on whose hands? Not a matter of if. It's a matter of when. 3 days after I warned the last, we had a tornado come through. Thank you.
Regan.
I'm gonna go, because we only got till 5 o'clock, or 5 o'clock. Brad Simone, Eastern Howard County. I need clarity today. I've been under the impression the approval process for the solar project, I want to make sure, and before I leave this podium today, I want to be 100% clear on the approval process for the solar project. I've been told it's the BZA, Drainage Board, Planning Commission, final approval.
I'm gonna have Mr. Wilson weigh in on
Mr. Sealine's even said that before. You can shake your head no, but you've said that right here. That's the approval process. The commissioners have said that, and that's how it's been stated for 5 years.
that. Mr. Wilson,
Mr. Wilson?
Greg wants to say something.
I have never once said that the commissioners had final approval on the solar field. What you gentlemen have final approval on is the agreements that you've looked at. The approval process has always been Board of Zoning Appeals first, Drainage Board second, Plan Commission approval, lastly for the site plan approval. You gentlemen only have approval over the agreements that you've, decommissioning, land use, those types of agreements. The final approval is for site plan approval, which goes before the Howard County Plan Commission. That's the way it's always been.
Always been that way.
Always been that way.
Well, why were we misled for 5 years? For 5 years, that's not the impression I've had. I've been told it's the BZA for zoning, the Drainage Board, the Planning Commission will send a favorable or unfavorable recommendation to the commissioners for final approval. So have I been misled for 5 years? Is that the case?
I don't disagree with what Mr. Sheeline said. You've had your own legal counsel throughout this matter. What your legal counsel told you about the process?
I didn't ask them.
Well,
Why should I ask my legal counsel that's gonna charge me every 15 minutes for something that my people right here that I elect
Can't answer
have
why you
misled
don't
me?
do that. If you
Here's
have
what
an
I
attorney,
think,
would've asked
Mr.
you.
Wilson. Here's what I think, Mr. Wilson. Since you've sat right there and allowed us to be misled without correcting anybody, you should be terminated from your position today.
Well, you think so?
I think so, absolutely. And if you guys have said that for 5 years, you misled the public. This sounds like a lawsuit to me. I mean,
Brad, can I answer that?
yes, please.
I do know there are times that we as commissioners approve from the planning commission.
So why is it different this time?
I can tell you if you'll let me.
Feel free.
Number one, I've never misled you. on
You've misled me
anything.
a lot, sir.
Okay. You've also defamed my character. and that's a
Well,
lawsuit as well, so.
No, I'm not defending your character.
Oh,
We're
yes, you
talking
have.
about- We're talking
Yes, you
about
have.
zoning.
I know, as long
You
as-
want to
Okay,
go into blighted
okay.
As long as
communities.
that's going back and
Okay.
forth, we won't get.
Number one, there are items through the plan commission that you three approve. That's subdivisions and rezonings. That's all you have ever approved through the plan commission. you've never approved the site plan through the plan
Did
commission,
they approve Valley of Grace?
not the site plan.
Did they have the final approval? They give Valley of Grace final approval.
They gave, no, they didn't. No, they
They
didn't.
did.
No, they
Come
didn't.
on, Brad, let him finish.
The site plan approval was approved by the plan commission on everything. This board does not approve site plan approvals. It never has. It approves rezonings and it approves subdivisions, and that's it.
So is this not gonna come in front of you guys then for final approval? Is that how we're all understanding this in Eastern Howard County now that you've misled us all out here?
That's what I'm hearing from.
That's what I'm,
Mr. Sheila.
is that the understanding? That you've misled us for 5 years?
I've never misled
Yes, you
about
did.
anything.
I can probably pull up the video and you'll hear him say that you have final approval. I can probably find that on
All
the,
you had final approval on was your agreement.
That's correct. That's
are
correct.
the agreements passed?
On the agreements.
Are the agreements been, are they approved? Still not approved?
Agreements approved?
Yeah.
No,
No?
because I can tell you, we don't have all the necessary information.
Since we've been misled for 5 years, and you can say you haven't misled us, but we've been misled for 5 years. We think you should have final approval of this project, because that's what you've been telling everybody. And if it has to be an ordinance to say so, or a motion made, I say we do it today, because you've told myself for 5 years, Euler for 5 years, the Halls for 5 years, Rimbargers for 5 years. You've told us all out there in Eastern Howard County for 5 years this is the process, and now all of a sudden, the day before the election, when you were up for election, you were up for election, the day before we find out, no, that's not the process. But I still had to vote, and I couldn't vet it in that amount of time, so I still had to vote. But I'm telling you, you guys have talked about this is gonna be a very public process, very transparent, right? I've heard that several times. But you misled us for 5 years? That doesn't sound very transparent, very public process.
I think we've included at least you on all of our stuff.
I wasn't included on the writing of the ordinance. You said that would happen. I was misled.
Got 124 comments.
Now, you said there you would have somebody from the community as part of the committee to overlook all this stuff. And then you
124
pulled that
public
out. You decided not to do that.
124.
Here's the
public
thing.
comments.
As a veteran of my country, your country, their country, our country, it's hard for me to swallow that I feel like my government is against the people that live in this county. And we are literally fighting our government that we elect you guys. We are fighting you to not put this around our houses. But yet, a big business comes in and they said it's true. By God, it must be true. Brad, you can have all your evidence. Sorry, those are opinions. But what they said is the holy gospel, and it's the truth. And I find that very hard to believe, and it's wrong to mislead the public for 5 years. Mr. Wilson, it's wrong of you to not ever correct anybody up there and say, no, guys, that's not how it goes. Because that's exactly what was said. Mr. Wyman told us that was the procedure. You guys have all told us that's the procedure. I know Mr. Sealine said that's the procedure. I'll find the video. We'll have him on here. I'll put him up here too. We'll listen to him say it. So for 5 years, and all of a sudden, this project doesn't come to you guys. Is it in the ordinance or something, that solar ordinance, that it didn't have to come in here? Is that why? Is that why?
In the zoning ordinance that the plan commission approves all site plan approvals. Always been that way.
What about the final approval of the whole project? I don't care about site plan. I'm talking about the whole thing
That is the
done.
That is the
That's
last
it.
approval of the project.
Site plan, that's it.
That is the last approval. All this
Ridiculous.
has been.
How do we stop this?
Well, we were supposed to vote people out of office a couple weeks ago, but we didn't find this out until the day before, so. I guess that's all I have. I guess we're been misled and we appreciate it, so. Have a good evening.
I won't take real long. I'm Jane Gar, 3710 North, 1350 East, Commerce. I'm in Howard County. I'm gonna go over these real quick because I know we don't have time. We have over 500 signatures so far that we're gonna turn in, and I just kind of wanted to let you guys know that. Oak Hill High School is now removing theirs. I think they've had them for 10 years. I think they're being removed for, they're not working anymore. And they're trying to figure out ways and how much it's gonna cost to remove all of their solar panels. Grace had mentioned on bushels per acre of what our lovely Howard County ground is that, you know, my great-great-grandfather helped establish. This year, I wish my dad was alive to see it. My dad passed away in December. Craig got between 240 and 280 bushel an acre on our corn. And you know, it wasn't all the fields that did that, but that was our best. And we're hoping that we continue that. I did go out searching at 2 o'clock, or before I moved in with my dad out at the farm, I lived in Greentown, and several nights I heard these buzzing sounds that were going on, and at 4 o'clock in the morning I went driving around thinking it was an elevator that was out on Boulevard, and it wasn't, and it circled me back around to Eastern High School where there was a very awful buzzing sound that came off of the solar panels behind the high school. And I called up Paul Wyman that morning and told him about it, and he had commented to me that he didn't know they made noise, but they do. And also, Grace mentioned the misrepresentation of a lot of the pictures that were shown, and I think it was the Howard County at the fairgrounds, the thing we went to, they showed little sheep grazing underneath these things, and that just isn't going to happen. And you know, they mentioned that they were going to restore the ground as it was initially, and who's going to come in, remove the trees, remove the panels, repair the tile, and get the ground back to what it's producing right now, because, you know, all those questions, you know, they claim they're going to do it if it's a limited time. There's a limit, what is it, 30 years? As far as the contracts, so there's an end that's going to be coming. And I think those were, you know, and I think somebody also mentioned that they withstand, I remember 120 mile an hour wind that the solar panels withstand, but, you know, in that newspaper right there, tornado was 500 mile an hour in the headlines of that paper. So those are just a few things that I just wanted to mention. You know, we talked about them before, and things that I wanted to refresh memory on. And you know, the history of our Howard County is really important to the ones that have, especially not the ones that have been here in the last 20 years, but the ones that have been here since the mid-1800s. You know, our ancestors aren't alive here, but they're the ones that cleared the ground and put the tile in. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Jensen Rimbarger, 8294 East, 500 South. Although I've had a lot of heartburn over the years from what we're talking about right now, this doesn't necessarily pertain to this. About a year ago, I was in a BZA meeting in Tipton County, and they were going through final approval for the stone quarry on County Line on the eastern half of Howard County right now. I got up and I spoke in and voiced a couple concerns because they were really adamant about pushing it through that day, and they didn't have any road usage agreements completely set up at that point. So I think at that point, they're gonna pull out of the facility, go down to 700 on County Line, and then to 26. Well, I brought up, what about all the other roads for the traffic coming in? So I'll give you an example. My wife last week took a video of 7 triaxles flying down County Line, and they're supposed to be using a designated road, and they are not.
They may be leaving that way, but they're coming in from every direction. So I was gonna see if there's any way that Howard County can put no through traffic, truck traffic on county line coming from 213, because that's typically the way they come from. So they bolstered up all the road going from the Stone Quarry county line to 700. They did all that work, but now they're tearing up all the road on county line to the east of that. Didn't know if you guys had any comment about that, if there's any recourse.
We've got our highway superintendent right there, and I'm sure she'll check into that for us.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we just got about 4 minutes left. Is there anyone else that wants to speak for 4 minutes?
Now, I'm gonna make this real quick. Stan Euler, Eastern Howard County. I know last week, the city of Kokomo, BZA, voted down the battery energy storage system. Or plan commission, whatever it was, they voted it down. I was really happy for that. But I think our county needs to look at putting a moratorium on the BESS systems until we can see what they're gonna do. I've got an article right here that says more than 1/4 of energy systems have fire detection suppression defects. It says a significant percentage of the world's energy storage systems could contain defects that pose a risk for runaway fire, according to data released last week by Clean Energy Associates. I can get you guys this article, but I really think it's something that the county really needs to look at, because me as a fire chief, we don't have the manpower and we don't have the people for one of these systems to catch on fire. Because it could take days to put it out. So I just want to throw that out there. Maybe we can get a moratorium in place until you can research more on these battery energy storage systems.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, Dan.
We appreciate all comments. We do hear all of them. And thank you all for staying with our time frame. I know probably there were many more comments that people wanted to say, so I do appreciate that. So I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We stand in adjournment. Thank you all.